All right, so then beyond the national framework, there's the international framework. And a key purpose of the international framework is to make sure that the local security is effective. I mean, ultimately, it's at a particular site or a particular transport that nuclear security works or it doesn't work, right? So everything you do internationally is designed to have an effect locally. And the diplomats often forget that. I mean, one amazing aspect of the nuclear security summit process is that almost none of the diplomats involved know anything about what I've just talked about in this talk. I mean, you ask them, do you have armed guards at the facility in your country? They're like, how should I know if we have armed guards there? And yet they're the ones negotiating about what we should do about nuclear security at the summits. There's not one regime for nuclear security. There's lots of pieces of a mosaic. And I would say there's still many gaps in the mosaic, but there are many pieces. Binding agreements, international recommendations, say from the IAEA, technical cooperation. The United States has been doing a lot of non-Lugar type cooperation with not only with Russia, but with a variety of countries around the world. There's this nuclear security summit process and other high-level discussions. The IAEA provides a variety of services to countries, peer reviews, other things, requirements of supply agreements. So the United States, all of the nuclear suppliers group countries have requirements when you buy a reactor or you buy nuclear material from them that you provide at least X level of security. The United States is the only one of those suppliers that actually goes and looks to see if the recipient is actually doing it. Would be useful if more countries went and looked. There's exchanges of best practices. Will Toby is the chairman of the World Institute of Nuclear Security, which is founded for the purpose of those best practice exchanges. And wrote actually quite an interesting paper recently, which I refer you to, about sort of the difference between standards and rules and regulation, which set sort of a floor, and best practices, which are intended to sort of search for excellence, basically. But all the international work is constrained by complacency, by people thinking, number one, terrorists couldn't possibly make a bomb. Number two, terrorists aren't interested in making a bomb. Number three, the security in my country is already good enough, etc. Sovereignty. This is my country, my material. You're not going to tell me what to do with it. Secrecy. This is all secret, what I do about nuclear security, therefore I'm not going to tell you anything about it or discuss it with you. And politics. Obviously, the political relations between countries can make it easier or more difficult to cooperate on these things. An obvious example in recent times is the United States had a deal with Belarus to eliminate the highly enriched uranium in Belarus. The United States then sanctioned Belarus over its bad election rigging, and Belarus said, well, forget about our deal on highly enriched uranium then. So the international system ended up, because of all those constraints, ends up being pretty weak. We have no international standards that specify what levels of security nuclear weapons, plutonium or HEU, should have. We have no regular international mechanism to build confidence that states are putting effective nuclear security in place. And we have no real forum for continuing discussions at a high level after the summit process comes to an end, which will happen either the 2014 summit will be the last one, or there'll be one more after that, but it will come to an end soon. And I would argue the current patchwork of arrangements is pretty clearly insufficient.
Well, thanks, Matt, for a lot.